Welcome to Zoe Stories. Forced to live as a girl for their summer camp. I'm Liam, 17, and like most guys my age, I'm still figuring things out. The summer camp experience is supposed to be about fun, friends, and maybe even some life-changing revelations. But for me, it quickly turned into something far more complicated. I never really thought much about my identity, who I was, or how I fit into the world around me. I had friends, played sports, and got along with pretty much everyone. But when my older brother, Greg, dared me to sign up for this camp, I didn't expect it to be so different. It wasn't just any camp. It was a high-stakes bet between Greg and a group of his college friends, and the challenge was insane. If I failed a series of tasks they'd set up, I'd have to follow through on the last condition: live as a girl for the whole summer. To be clear, I hadn't done anything remotely close to dressing in women's clothes before. The thought of it made my stomach churn with a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. I told myself I wouldn't get involved, but Greg, being his usual competitive self, pushed me to the point where backing out wasn't an option. Now, the consequences are looming, and as much as I want to walk away, there's something inside of me that wonders what it would really be like to go through with it. The camp itself has already set the stage for an uncomfortable transformation, one that's bound to mess with my head. What's at stake? Everything. My reputation, my sense of self, and maybe even my relationship with Greg, who's already enjoying the power he has over me. It's the kind of thing that could change me forever, and I'm not sure whether that's a good or terrible thing. The moment Greg laid out the final condition, I froze. My mind raced with disbelief. I thought he was joking. There was no way he actually expected me to go through with it. But the look in his eyes told me this wasn't a prank. It was the real deal. I felt a sick knot form in my stomach. The idea of living as a girl for an entire summer seemed impossible. I mean, me, a guy who'd spent his whole life playing sports, hanging out with my friends, doing guy stuff, dressing like a girl? No way. My first instinct was to back out, to tell Greg that I wasn't some kind of puppet he could control with a bet. But as much as I wanted to walk away, there was this stupid pride in me, this stubbornness. I didn't want to be seen as weak or scared. If I failed, I'd never hear the end of it. The fear started to creep in, not just about the bet itself, but about who I'd become if I actually did it. Would people treat me differently? Would I still be me, or would I lose something I couldn't get back? I kept picturing myself in some frilly dress, walking around camp, everyone staring at me like I was a freak. It made my heart race, palms sweaty just thinking about it. But then another part of me, this tiny spark of curiosity, started to take hold. What if it wasn't as bad as I thought? What if I could actually learn something about myself, maybe about why I've always felt like I'm stuck in this rigid version of masculinity? The thought made me pause. There was a strange sense of freedom in the idea, like maybe I'd be able to see myself in a new way. Could I really do it, though? Could I throw away my pride and just embrace it for the summer? Or would I regret it forever? The stakes felt higher than ever, and the uncertainty gnawed at me. I was terrified, but part of me was also drawn in by the idea of transformation, of something new and unknown. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at a leap I wasn't sure I could make. I'd been talking to Greg about the bet for days now, but the closer we got to summer camp, the more it felt like something I couldn't ignore. I confided in Kyle, my best friend, hoping he'd talk some sense into me. After all, he was the guy I trusted with everything. If anyone could talk me out of it, it was him. "You're seriously considering this?" Kyle asked, his voice tinged with disbelief as we sat on the hood of my car, a few days before we were supposed to leave for camp. "You're not going to just become a girl for a whole summer. That's crazy." I shrugged, trying to keep my voice steady, but inside, I was a mess. It's not like I have much of a choice. Greg's already got everyone else backing him. If I back out, I'll look like a coward. Kyle shook his head, disbelief still written all over his face.
It's not about that.
Think about it. A whole summer? Dude, you're going to be living as someone you're not. That's not just a prank anymore. You'll have to be her, walk, talk, think like a girl. And what happens when it's over? What if you can't switch back? The words hit me harder than I expected. What if I couldn't switch back? What if this summer changed something in me that I couldn't undo? I tried to laugh it off, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. Could I really go through with this? Was I prepared to live as someone else for an entire summer? The thought made me dizzy. Later that evening, I found myself alone in my room, pacing back and forth. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me. Just me, the guy I always saw when I looked at myself. But now, that reflection seemed alien. What would I look like in a dress? What would people think of me? I imagined the whispering behind my back, the uncomfortable stares, the feeling of not being me anymore. I could barely stomach the idea. But then, in a moment of weakness, I found myself searching online, dresses, makeup tutorials, even accessories. I scrolled through images of men who had undergone transformations, stories of them finding confidence in ways they never thought possible. Could this be a way to finally break free from the expectations I'd been carrying around for years? Could I get something from this experience that would make it all worth it? My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was Greg. "Are you in or not?" he texted. The pressure was unbearable. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. The response I sent back would shape the next few months of my life. Finally, my finger tapped the screen. "I'm in." As soon as the words left my hands, a wave of both dread and excitement crashed over me. There was no turning back now. But even as the finality of my decision settled in, another part of me wondered, what have I just gotten myself into? The days leading up to camp felt like an eternity. My mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. I'd made the decision. I was going through with the bet. But with every passing hour, the reality of what I'd agreed to weighed heavier on me. It wasn't just a silly joke anymore, it was real. I was going to have to live as someone I wasn't. As the day of departure neared, I found myself standing in front of my closet, staring at the clothes I'd packed. A mix of anxiety and anticipation gnawed at me. The dresses, skirts, and makeup would be a far cry from the guy I had always been. What if I didn't like the person I became? What if it felt like I was losing myself in the process? I had no answers, only questions. I was about to step into a world that I couldn't control. I'd have to be someone else, someone the other campers would expect me to be. The thought terrified me. But then there was the other side, the part of me that felt drawn to the challenge. Maybe this would be the ultimate test, the way to break free from everything that had held me back. What if, by becoming someone else, I could learn something about myself? What if I could become more confident, more real than I had ever been before? The tension inside me was unbearable. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to back out, but I knew deep down that I had already made my choice. The consequences were clear: a summer spent as a girl, risking embarrassment, confusion, maybe even my friendships. But the biggest consequence? Never knowing what I could have learned if I didn't take the leap. I grabbed the suitcase and zipped it shut. There was no turning back. The first morning at camp felt like stepping into a dream or a nightmare. I hadn't slept much, my thoughts tumbling through every worst-case scenario. When I opened my eyes, it hit me all over again. Today, I was going to become someone else. No more hiding behind my usual clothes, my usual identity. The transformation began in the bathroom, the cool, fluorescent lights flickering above me as I stood before the mirror. I felt absurd, nervous energy pooling in my chest. The clothes I had brought, skirts, blouses, dresses, felt alien in my hands. I'd never worn anything like them before, but here they were, folded neatly on the counter, ready to be slipped into. My fingers trembled as I took off my usual jeans and t-shirt, replacing them with a soft, flowy skirt and a delicate top that clung to my skin in an unfamiliar way. The fabric felt different, soft against my legs, the air more aware of my movements. I gazed at myself, not recognizing the reflection staring back at me. The boy I knew was gone, replaced by someone else. Someone who looked out of place. My skin felt exposed, my body more vulnerable than ever. I wasn't used to this new shape, the way the fabric moved with me. It was like every step I took was a reminder that I had just crossed a line. I moved on to my hair. It had always been short, practical, a part of the boy I'd always been. But now, as I ran my fingers through long, styled hair, soft and bouncy, it felt like it belonged to someone else. The weight of it on my shoulders felt odd. My heart raced. I didn't even recognize myself. Then came the makeup, the most unfamiliar part of it all. The first touch of foundation on my skin felt cool, almost soothing. My fingers moved hesitantly, unsure of how much I needed or how to blend it all together. The mascara was the worst, though. The brush touched my lashes, and I felt the sudden vulnerability of being watched, of being noticed. The blush was the final touch, giving my cheeks a subtle warmth. I couldn't help but look at myself again. Who was this person? I stepped out of the bathroom, my knees feeling weak. The camp was alive with voices, the sound of other kids laughing, playing, and shouting. But as I stepped into the sunlight, everything seemed to slow down. The stares were immediate. I saw the boys glance over at me, their eyes widening, then quickly looking away. Some smiled, others seemed confused. But it was the girls that got to me the most. They didn't stare like the boys did. They studied me, like I was a puzzle they were trying to figure out.
Hey, wow, one of them said.
You look different. In a good way. But even her words, meant as a compliment, didn't settle the storm inside me. I felt exposed, like every part of me was being dissected, judged. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to keep a calm face, trying to appear confident, even though I felt anything but. But then, something unexpected happened. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of freedom. The world was different from this perspective. People looked at me differently, treated me differently, and for the first time, I wasn't just a guy in the crowd. I was a girl, and that realization was both empowering and terrifying. With every step I took, I felt more uncomfortable, but I also felt a flicker of something else. Something exciting. The fear and discomfort didn't go away, but it didn't matter. This was happening, and I would have to learn to live with it. The sun was setting as the campfire crackled in front of me, the flames dancing like they were mocking my every thought. It had been days since I'd stepped into this new life, but today felt different. My mind was clouded with uncertainty, each decision from the last few days building toward this one final moment. Sitting around the fire, I could feel the weight of the transformation pressing down on me. I had been playing the part, wearing the clothes, the makeup, smiling, laughing, but now, sitting here, I realized I hadn't really been living it. I'd been pretending, hiding behind this mask of femininity, like it was just a game. But the reality of the situation crashed over me in waves. My friends, the same people who had dared me to come to this camp dressed as a girl, had been watching me all along. And I hadn't noticed. Hey, how's it feel? John's voice cut through the night air, sharp and almost too casual. I glanced at him. His eyes were intense, studying me, like he was waiting for an answer that would reveal something deeper than I was ready to admit. I didn't know how to answer. How was it supposed to feel? Weird, I muttered, the words slipping out before I could stop it. But the truth was, it was more than weird, it was suffocating. Every part of me wanted to strip this new identity away and go back to who I was before. But the campfire, the faces of my friends staring at me, the expectation in the air, I realized I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't unbecome this version of myself anymore. The person I was now wasn't just someone I had been forced to become, it was someone I was beginning to understand. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't just pretending anymore. This was my life now, at least for the summer. And the scariest part? I didn't know if I wanted to go back. John, I whispered, my voice trembling. I don't think I can go back. Not after this. There was silence for a beat, the crackling of the fire the only sound. My heart pounded in my chest as I waited for his reaction. Would he laugh? Mock me? Instead, he just nodded, his face unreadable. Maybe you shouldn't, he said softly, almost like he was letting me in on a secret. And in that moment, I knew everything had changed. As the camp came to an end, I found myself standing in front of the mirror one last time. The reflection staring back at me wasn't just the girl in the makeup and dress. It was me, in a way I hadn't expected. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of self-discovery, challenges, and surprising moments of clarity. I had gone from feeling trapped in a role I didn't choose to embracing a side of myself I never knew existed. I realized now that it wasn't just about the clothes or the outward transformation. It was about how I'd learned to shed the layers of insecurity I had carried for so long. The fear that I would be judged, laughed at, or misunderstood had almost paralyzed me at the start. But as the days passed, those fears became less important. I had learned to stand in my own skin, to face the world with a confidence I had never known.
It wasn't just the campmates who had changed.
They had seen me grow, too. I saw their acceptance, their respect, and, in a strange way, their admiration. The journey hadn't just altered me. It had altered the way they viewed me. The lessons I learned here weren't just for the summer. They were lessons about self-acceptance, bravery, and the power of stepping into the unknown. As I packed my bags and prepared to leave, I felt a sense of peace settle in. No matter where life took me from here, I knew I would carry this new version of myself with me. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid. In fact, I was excited to see where it would lead. Thank you for joining us on another captivating journey through Zoe's stories. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a tale. Until next time, keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep believing in the magic of storytelling. See you in the next chapter.